I'll give you a grade for it. Okay, moving on today. Moving on. See what we have. Do I have a bell ringer for you? Do I have it? Okay, yep. So short bell ringers, just so I can give you 5 points at the end of the week. Describe the impact of the Tuskegee Airmen. So we should know this already. Just had a reading on it. Talked about it last Thursday. Good to go.
You want us to turn in our bell ringers?
How many do we have? Do we only have 2? How about I add them all in the end of this week, and I'll have 7. So I'll just give them to you. How does that work? And next week, Friday, I'll give you 7 points. Seems fair. And you can use those as a study tool, obviously. All right, so what do we got here, Chris? What do you got?
I said, cool. All the Tuskegee pilots that crashed were alive, but 66 died from the missions that they were set on. 32 of them were held prisoner, and they had great success as the whole crew of them shot down 490 aircrafts and 950 transportation on the ground, and had a lot of, skill taking down destroyers as they took them down the machine guns.
All right, yeah, good job. Good job. So the Tuskegee Airmen, we know the impact. This was very uniting for the United States, trying to bring all groups of the U.S., especially African American, with segregation. We all know that it didn't end, right? It's going to continue on until obviously we get to the civil rights movement. Still issues today, right, with racial tensions. But with the Tuskegee Airmen, this was very impactful, very significant air group because they were protecting many of the bombers in the United States as they were targeting many key cities of Germany. And realistically, this is what won us the war. The Allied powers had full strength in the skies. The Luftwaffe was out of commission, and we can thank the Tuskegee Airmen for that, protecting these bombers as they're making a trip over top of Germany to destroy many of these cities and key areas for the production of their war effort. Remember, best way to eliminate an enemy in war and opposition is cutting off their supplies, cutting off their production. And we can really thank the Tuskegee Airmen for that. Like I mentioned, okay, some of the issues that they face, we'll face after the war, obviously not great whatsoever. And it's almost like a smack in the face to many of them as they were getting off the ship, as the war was ending. That segregation will still continue in the U.S. after this war. All right, is there any questions on that? All right, good. One term today, that's it. One term. So we finished up talking about, well, The one you already have. So I can't really zoom in anymore, but it's just Operation Overlord. That's it. Operation Overlord, D-Day invasion. Here we go. Here we go. So I want to show you a video towards the end of the class. We might not get through all of it, but it really puts it in perspective of what the event really was and what it was like. All right, for the sake of time, Operation Overlord, the D-Day invasion, the Normandy invasion. This was established at what conference? Do you guys remember? What conference was it? Cody?
I don't remember the name, but it was with the United States president,
FDR?
Russian guy.
Stalin?
I want to say Great Britain.
Yep, Churchill. Good job. The big three, right? The big three. Make sure you guys remember those three names there. And the big three, they met at the conference, right, Tehran, where they came up with this plan, this invasion, to try to create a three-front war for Germany. Stalin said, listen, we need boots on the ground here, right? We need to try to create this three-front war. We need to have troops on the ground in northern France. And what was FDR getting out of this, the United States? What were they getting out of this conference? Chris? Yeah, after obviously Germany was defeated, they're going to help fight Japan out in the Pacific. And the United States is going to use the atomic bombs to try to end it quicker, end it earlier, because they knew this threat that was going to loom over if the Soviets got troops on the ground on the mainland island of Japan. Spread of communism, right? Got to use the bombs, end it quick before they can obviously spread their territory. All right. Is there any questions on that? Operation Overlord, you good? All right. So that is the Normandy invasion, the D-Day invasion. So real quick, here we go. Slideshow. There it is. D-Day invasion. Make sure you write the date down here. June 6th, 1944. June 6th, 1944. So this would be the largest invasion the United States has ever been involved with, and one of the most significant invasions in world history, most impactful. This was aimed to break the Atlantic Wall, the German army, the Wehrmacht, right? The Wehrmacht, in northern France. Okay, northern France. Across the, what body of water is it? They're going to be moving from Great Britain across a body of water into northern France. What body of water is that called? Chris? An English Channel. Good job, the English Channel. Good, good, good. So at the Tehran conference, the big three came together, and this is really what this meeting was all about. Operation Overlord. Angel, you good with your phone there? You put it away for me, please? Thanks. Don't roll your eyes at me. Come on, man. All right. So yeah, with this D-Day invasion, the United States, Great Britain, Canadian forces are going to travel across the English Channel to try to break this Atlantic Wall. Germany has a strong wall right here. Okay, they have strong barricades, defenses right here in the northern part of France. They want to try to prevent the Allied powers from setting foot in France. Okay, why France? Is because if we liberate France, this is really adding another power to our advantage. And this is going to be pushing Germany back to their main border. Okay? So Operation Overlord, D-Day invasion, is what this is going to be used as, obviously traveling across the English Channel to break this Atlantic Wall. So who is the man in charge? Who's coming up devising of the D-Day invasion? What's his name? He's a famous general. He'll later be president of the United States. Chris? Yeah, good job. Dwight Eisenhower. World War II when we get to the Cold War. But he is most famous for, at this moment, creating and devising the D-Day invasion. He's a supreme Allied commander of, obviously, the United States, but the Allied powers. So it was actually planned for June 5th. June 5th. Why do you think it got postponed a day? Haley? What's that? Yeah, the weather, right? There's really bad, poor weather conditions. And traveling across the English Channel, really difficult to do. It's really wavy, it's really rocky, and with the weather conditions at that moment, June 5th, okay, it was something that obviously was really difficult to accomplish for the Allied powers traveling across this body of water. So they're like, you know what, we'll just wait a day. Can you imagine like the anxiety of these soldiers on the boat? Okay, I'm sure you guys all know sporting events, you get anxiety, you get butterflies in your stomach. But this is, your life's on the line, right? You're marching on a beach, trying to evade bullets, trying to take over the opposition. I couldn't even imagine. It's like, hey guys, we're just gonna wait a day. What? It's unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable. I couldn't imagine the anxiety, right? And the stress of the situation. So with that being said, there's 5 beaches. Make sure you guys write the beaches down here. I don't think I have them on here. Okay, but the 2 famous American beaches that we invaded on was Utah and Omaha. Utah and Omaha. Those were the 2 main beaches the United States invaded on. And those are the ones you really hear about the most. Okay, obviously because American perspective, right? Okay. And a lot of people argue that that was mostly the heavily defended beaches by the German army, the Vermont. Okay. So Omaha, Utah, make sure you guys write that down, know that. And for Great Britain and Canadian forces, it was Sword, Juno, and Gold. There you go. So there's the 5 beaches I want you to know. So with this invasion, they're not just going into one beachhead. No, there's 5 separate beaches. There's a planned invasion for the United States, for the Utah and Omaha. And we have Canadian and Great Britain forces at the 3 other beaches. And their goal is really just try to break this Atlantic wall. Was it just soldiers storming the beaches? No. Okay, there was parachuters. There was airborne, 101st Airborne especially. You guys ever see the show Band of Brothers? Oh, it's an awesome show. You guys got to check it out. But with Band of Brothers, it really talks about this 101st Airborne and how they're significant with pushing back the Axis forces here. So the goal was these parachuters, they would obviously parachute behind enemy lines here. So they're going to try to cut off these supplies going to the bunkers that were established for Germany. Okay, if they can cut off these supplies, if they can really flank them, come up from behind, this will end this battle really quick. And it doesn't end quick, that's for sure. But that was the goal for the Allied powers. Have some parachuters come, land behind the bunkers, cut off supply lines, try to outflank the German army in their own bunkers, and at the same time storm the beaches with many troops. You think we had a lot of tanks there on the beaches? No, we didn't. They had a lot of different obstacles, terrain, anti-tank obstacles out on the beach to prevent us from just mowing through with these tanks. And it was like on a cliffside, right? It was on a cliff, so it was going to be really hard to travel these armored vehicles on the beach. It would be really difficult to accomplish. At the same time, the German army, it looked like they had the advantage, right? Definitely. They're up on the beachhead. They're just raining down on many of the soldiers that were coming in, obviously, from the beach. And it was really one of the biggest impacts for the U.S. When you think about sheer numbers lost, casualties, it was a really, really sad event. And I'll show a video here shortly about just an experience. You guys ever see the movie Saving Private Ryan? The beginning part of it is the D-Day invasion. And I'll play a little bit for you shortly. So with that being said, very successful for the U.S., but a lot of casualties. It came to a toll. And many perspectives talk about this toll. Okay, the German army, they're trying to make sure that they could prevent the Allied powers from storming the beaches. And Erwin Rommel was the man in charge to try to defend the beach. At this time, though, do you think the German army had many supplies and armaments? No. I wrote a paper in college about the perspective of the German army, the D-Day invasion. And you know how there's different calibers with weapons and guns? At that time, they weren't really universal. So Switzerland made a version of let's say a 50 caliber rifle. Okay, Germany made a different caliber. Austria made a different caliber. So when they're grabbing all these shells, all these forms of ammunition, okay, they're just trying to use it, obviously, in their weapons, and it's clogging up, it's jamming up. Many of the German soldiers actually talk about how they were just ill-equipped. They didn't have the supplies to really hold this beachhead. But at the same time, it caused a lot of havoc, caused a lot of death for the U.S. invading this beach. But Success for the U.S. and the Allied powers. We officially took the beachhead, and this was really the beginning of the end for the German army in the Western Front. Okay, after this success here, June 6, 1944, it really will be a short amount of months until the Allied powers push Germany back to their own border, until this war is actually ending. So at this moment, once the D-Day invasion was a success, once we obviously put troops on the ground at Normandy Beach, we now have a three-front war, okay? Obviously now Western Europe, the northern part of France, we're coming up from the south. We already talked about that with the invasion of Italy. And at the same time, we have the Eastern Front, the Soviets, right, fighting the German army in the eastern part of Europe. So at this moment, they're just getting pushed back and back and back until they surrender in 1945, the German army. And at the same time, the Allied powers were bombing many of these industrial areas, these larger cities, crippling their supplies, crippling their industries, producing more supplies. Here are these anti-tank obstacles, like I said. See these big crosses in the ground there? That's to prevent any type of tanks, armored vehicles traveling on the beach. Here's an invasion pod. Here's a picture of an invasion pod. Obviously taking a lot of hit from the German army. The Germans are going to focus their attention on that door. Because once that door drops, you imagine just really payloading all those people all at once. So many of the troops actually just jumped over the side to try to prevent getting all taken out in one blow. And this is really what the invasion pod kind of looked like, traveling across the English Channel from these larger vessels, these larger ships that the Allied powers had. Once they acquired it, obviously setting troops, setting grounds, and supplies and armored vehicles on the beach to try to push this German army back. Here's what a German bunker would look like. As you can see, it's really on a cliff head. It's going to be hard for the Allied powers to march up and really scale these walls. At the same time, the Allied powers were using their battleships to launch artillery shots at these bunkers, try to destroy them as all possible. Can you imagine that? These artillery shells being launched at these bunkers. These German troops everybody had to be very fearful, obviously. And at the same time, the parachuters being dropped behind enemy lines. It was just a matter of time until these airborne groups will outflank the German troops there at holding these bunkers on these beachheads. So there it is. Make sure you guys remember the 5 beaches, and really important, and the significance of it. We finally broke that Atlantic wall that Germany had established in Europe. All right, so I'll play a little bit of this video